Math 3, Unit 5, Section 6. Today we're talking about solving square roots and other radical equations. When you're solving, you have these steps here. The first thing is that you want to get your radical by itself. So you're always trying to get that root by itself. And then from there you end up squaring each side. And then you need to check for extraneous solutions. How you do that, and if you read over here in this little block, basically, when you raise each side to a power, it is possible to introduce extraneous solutions. So the way to check is to plug in each of your answers back into your original equation. If you get a true statement, then you're good. That's a solution. If you get something like 2 equals 5, that's not a true statement, and so then that actually is not a solution. So with these problems, it's very important that you go back and check your work, because a lot of times one or both of the answers may not actually work. Okay? So, first example, we want to get the root by itself. What would I do first for this problem? Very good. Add 5 to both sides. So now I have 2 root x equals 8. Is the root by itself? No. So what would I do next? Perfect. So now I have root x equals 4. So in order to get rid of a root, you have to square it. But whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So when you square a square root, it eliminates the root. So whatever's out or whatever's under the root just comes out. And so in this case, it's just going to be an x. Okay? And then 4 squared is... Very good. So it's always important that we check our answers. So I'm going to go ahead and write check over here. And how I check it is we are just plugging 16 into this original equation. And so I write this as 2 root 16 minus 5 equals, and I put a question mark because I'm really not sure if it's equal to that, 3. And so then we just go through and simplify. So what is the square root of 16? 4. So that means I have 2 times 4 minus 5, and 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 minus 5 is 3. So 3 does equal 3, so that one checks out. So my answer is x equals 16. Do you have any questions for me? We're okay? All right, next example. Is the root by itself? Yeah. So see how there's nothing in front of the root, there's nothing adding behind the root. The root itself is by itself. Okay? And so in order to get rid of that root, what would I do? Square. Good. Square both sides. Okay. Whenever you square both sides, or when you square a square root, what happens? Yeah, the root and the square kind of cancel each other out, and you end up with 7 minus 2x equals, and then I have what?
Or x squared.
X squared. Good. Now, anytime you have an x squared term, you want to set the equation equal to 0 and factor. Okay, but you want your highest exponent to always stay positive. So do you see how x squared is positive right now? Okay, so that means we're going to move all this other stuff to the right with the x squared. So I'm going to subtract 7 and add 2x. Oh, and you know what? I forgot to come back to this. But so we have x squared plus 2x minus 7 equals 0. And at this point right now, this is not factorable. So what would we do? Yeah, use the quadratic equation. Okay? And so the quadratic equation, a equals 1, b equals 2, and c equals negative 7. Do you guys remember the quadratic formula? Okay, x equals negative b, so that'd be negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 2 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 7, all over 2 times a, which is 2 times 1. For those of you that have forgotten, you could always look it up, but I'll write it up here for you again. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So then we go through and simplify. What is 2 squared? 4. Minus 4 times 1 times negative 7 makes a positive 28. And 28 plus 4 equals 32. So we get negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 32 all over 2. Can 32 break down? What does 32 break down to be? Okay, 8 and 4. And then I'm going to do 8 as 4 and 2, because then I have a pair of 4s with just a 2 left over. You can only reduce this 2 if there's something in front of all of those. So in this case right now there isn't yet. So we have negative 2 plus or minus 4 root 2 all over 2. And then now do you see how there's like a 2 in front of each of those pieces? You can reduce all those by 2. So this cancels out, this becomes a 1, and this becomes a 2. And so we get x equals negative 1 plus or minus 2 root 2. For time's sake right now, we're not going to check this one. On your test, you're not going to get anything, I don't think, where you have to use the quadratic formula, but I'll go back and double check it. But just so you know that if you can't factor it, you can always use your quadratic formula. All right, third example. Are we ready? Yes? Okay. So is the root by itself? What would I do first in this one? Good. Subtract 7 is correct. And don't forget that this 3 is being multiplied by this root. So please do not try to like add 7 and 3 together. Okay? And so we have to subtract 7 first. So now I have 3 root x minus 1 equals negative 6. Good. What will I do next? Good. So square root of x minus 1 equals negative 2. Now, this is where you have to remember some stuff from last unit. If I have a square root, if I take the square root of a number, will it ever end up equaling a negative number? No. So this one is going to be no solution. Is everybody clear on this one? Okay. Is the root by itself on this next one? No. What would I do to get this root by itself? Very good. So we're going to subtract 3 to both sides. I get the square root of 5x minus 1 equals x minus 3. What will I do now? Good. So we square both sides. And when I square the square root of 5x minus 1, what does that make? Good. What do I do when I square x minus 3? Yeah, you're going to have to multiply it out or distribute. So you might want to go ahead and write another x minus 3 there. And we distribute. X times x is x squared. X times negative 3. Negative 3x. Negative 3 times x is, and negative 3 times negative 3 makes positive 9. Good. So then we can simplify. We still have 5x minus 1 on the left, and then we get x squared minus 6x plus 9. What will we do now? So we need, in order to factor, it has to be set equal to what?
0.
0. So what will I need to do?
Subtract 5x.
Good. Subtract 5x and add 1. So I get x squared minus 11x plus 10 equals 0. Okay, so on that one, what multiplies to be 10 and adds to be negative 11? X minus 10 and x minus 1 is correct. And when we set those equal to 0, what should it equal? 10 and 1. Good. So we need to check these solutions. So over here, I'm just going to write check because I have more room there to the left. And we'll start by plugging in 10. So for 10, we have the square root of 5 times 10 minus 1 plus 3 equals 10. Okay, what is 5 times 10? 50. And what's 50 minus 1? So I have the square root, and sorry, I forgot to put the question mark there. The square root of 49 plus 3 equals 10. Square root of 49 is 7, and does 7 plus 3 equal 10? Okay, so 10 works. Now let's check the other one. So we're going to check 1. So we have the square root of 5 times 1 minus 1 plus 3 equals 1. So what is the square, or what is 5 times 1? 5, and then 5 minus 1 makes 4. So we have the square root of 4 plus 3. What's the square root of 4? 2. Does 2 plus 3 equal 1? No, it does not equal. So that means that 1 is not a solution, only 10 is.
So what if both don't want to know?
Then it would just be no solution. Exactly. Okay, do you think you're ready to try one on your own? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to have you try this one on the left on your own. The one on the right, I'm going to write out a different problem, so don't try to do that one. And once you get your answer, raise your hand. Oh, you guys are fast. Okay, just a minute.
Did you do?
Good, don't forget to check. Good, don't forget to check it. Good. 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 Oops, sorry. Yes. Okay, so the correct answer is 30. A lot of you got 30 and you did awesome, but don't forget to go back and check because again, sometimes it might not work. So real quick, I'll go through here. First, you would add 3 to both sides. 2 root x minus 5 equals 10. Next, you would divide by 2 to both sides. So then I have root x minus 5 equals 5. Next, I would square both sides. I get x minus 5 equals 25. Then I add 5 to both sides. X equals 30. So then we need to check it just to make sure. So I check it by going back to my original problem and plugging in 30. So you can't see exactly what I'm doing, so I'm going to move it up. So it's going to be 2 root 30 minus 5 minus 3 equals 7. 30 minus 5 is 25. The square root of 25 is? Tough question. It's 5. And then 2 times 5 is 10. And 10 minus 3 is 7. So it checks out. Okay? 7 does equal 7. I did that kind of quickly because most of you already had the answer. Do I need to talk about anything or go back to a part of that problem?
Wait, can you show your work?
On the check?
Can I look at it?
Yeah. So the only x was right there, so I just plugged in 30.
Okay.
And then you're just simplifying this side to make sure it equals the 7.
Okay.
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
You're
Not
welcome.
the right answer, just not the right check answer.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so the next problem, rewrite that one. It's the square root of 3x minus 5 equals x minus 1. So we'll go ahead and do this one together. What would I do? Actually, I'm going to pull some 6 for this one. Okay, let's see if you guys can be with me here. Okay, you ready? So my first question is, what is my first step?
Square.
Okay, I'm going to pull 6.
Oh.
Okay. Are you guys ready? Here we go. Aaron, I.
Oh,
First one.
square.
Good. Square both sides. Okay. Now, when I square both sides, what happens to this left side of the equation? Please tell me, Anthony.
That just comes out as 3x minus 12.
Perfect. 3x minus 5. And then on the right side, what will I do? Dustin's not here. Robert, what will you do? Exactly. So we're going to take x minus 1 and multiply it by x minus 1. And in order to multiply it, what is the word that we use to multiply this? What is it, Alexa? Yes, distribute is correct. Good job. Okay, so x times x is x squared. X times negative 1, negative 1x. Good. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x, and negative 1 times negative 1 makes a positive 1. Very good. So next we're going to go ahead and simplify. So we're going to write this as 3x minus 5 equals x squared, and negative 1x and negative 1x makes negative 2x plus 1. Questions up to this point? Okay, so next stick is tell me the next step. So what would I do at this point for solving? Mark. So anytime you have an x squared, you want the equation to be set equal to what? 0. And we always want our x squared term to be positive. Good. And so are we going to move this stuff to the right, or are we going to move this stuff over here to the left? Very good. And so in order to do that, we're going to subtract 3x and add 5. And so we end up with x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. What will I do now? Manveer. Say that again. Good. What are my multiply and add numbers? Okay, so we're multiplying to be 6, we're adding to be negative 5, and the two numbers that worked were negative 2 and negative 3. Is that what you said? Okay, good. And so we write that as factors, and we have x minus 2 and x minus 3 equals 0. And when we set those equal to 0, what do they equal? Anybody? 2 and 3. Good. So we're going to go ahead and check our work. We're going to plug them back in to our original equation, which is back up here. In fact, I'm just going to write the original equation. Square root of 3x minus 5 equals x minus 1. So we're going to plug in 2 and 3. You get the square root of 3 times 2 minus 5 equals 2 minus 1. Am I doing that right? Okay, so what is 3 times 2? 6. And then 6 minus 5 is 1. And the square root of 1 is 1. And does 1 equal 1? Okay, so 2 worked out. Now we are going to plug in 3. So the square root of 3 times 3 minus 5 equals 3 minus 1. What is 3 times 3? 9, and 9 minus 5 is? And the square root of 4 is 2, and does 2 equal 2? Yes. So for this problem, they ended up having 2 answers, but it doesn't always work out that way.